At the polo match, the young Lord Wuan's court attire was torn by a polo stick, a woman's strapless garment slipped down from his clothes, everyone gasped in an uproar, and the master of Chenghuan County exclaimed in shock, "Nanji, isn't that your little dress?" The young lord, his face reddened, whispered to me, "Nanji, I just want to think of you at all times, so I keep it with me. I didn't intend for others to know. A strapless bra ruined my reputation. I wanted to explain that it wasn't even my intimate apparel, but I was unable to defend myself, and I became known as a wanton woman in everyone's mouth." The noble son's words, "We were merely overcome by passion and shared an intimate moment," cast me into an abyss from which there was no return. Using my so-called lewdness as a pretext for corrupting public morals, the eldest princess had me given 30 lashes, then thrown into a royal Taoist nunnery, where I was left to die in agony. I was swept up and thrown into the back mountains to feed the wolves, just as the bridal sedan chair of Princess Chenghuan was being carried into the manor of Wuan Marquis on the 7th day. The heir apparent burned a woman's underbodice before my spirit tablet. "Nanji, I wronged you over that underbodice, but things happened so suddenly, I could only use you as an excuse. It's just your misfortune, really." When I opened my eyes again, I was back on the day of the polo match. The heir of Wuan Marquis was about to have his collar torn open by the polo mallet. The cheers on the field jolted me awake. Cold sweat broke out on my forehead as I realized I had been reborn into the middle of a polo match. I looked at Xie Yunju on the field. In about the time it takes to burn one incense stick, his collar would be torn open by a polo mallet, and that pink doo-doo would fall out. The nightmare of my previous life was about to repeat itself. The maid Mingyu looked at me with concern and asked, "Miss, what's wrong with you, princess?" Chenghuan, who was beside me, also looked over. "Nanji, you look pale, what's the matter?" I stood up and took Mingyu's hand. "I'm feeling unwell, please excuse me while I go change, princess." Then I led Mingyu to a secluded spot. After whispering a few words to her, her expression turned serious. She nodded immediately and hurried away. When I returned to the stands, I only saw the second young master of the Pingyang Earl's household hitting Xie Yunju with his cue, a sound like fabric tearing, and a light, peach-pink strapless top floated down from Xie Yunju's chest. Under everyone's gaze, it fell to the ground. That bright peach-pink color drew a startled cry from the spectators on the stands. "Oh my!" The lady's small garment fell out from the young lord of Wanhu's arms. Isn't the heir of Wanhu always virtuous? How could there be a lady's small garment? I didn't expect the heir to be such a rakish figure. Which courtesan from the brothel could have given him this token of betrothal? Xie Yunju didn't expect this small garment to fall out in public. His face alternating between pale and red with embarrassment, he stood awkwardly in the middle of the room, clutching the gathered tube top tightly in his hand. Princess Chenghuan looked at me in disbelief. "Nanji, isn't that your tube top?" Her shriek made everyone turn their eyes to me. As soon as Princess Chenghuan finished speaking, she seemed to realize she had said something wrong, covered her mouth, and looked at me with an apologetic expression. I did not say a word. Xie Yunzu looked at me with affectionate, melting eyes. His face reddened as he murmured, "Nanji, I just want to think of you all the time, so I carry it with me. It's not meant for others to know on purpose." Then he hurried to explain to everyone, "We were merely overwhelmed by our feelings, and that's why there was skin-to-skin contact, just as in the previous life." With a single sentence, I was nailed to the pillar of shame. The way everyone looked at me became laden with meaning. When a well-bred lady's undergarments are found in a man's arms, the implications are all too clear. Everyone whispered among themselves, pointing and muttering at me. Oh my heavens! Who would have thought the Prime Minister's legitimate daughter could be such a lewd and wanton woman? Too, truly, you can know a person's face but not their heart. Even the Dowager Empress praised her as cultured and refined, a pearl of the capital. Who would have known she was such a fickle and flirtatious sort? That blush of peach red stung my eyes. As in the previous life, the filthy slander came pouring down upon me. I steadied my emotions and looked at Xie Yunju, then smiled. "Young Master Xie, you may eat more, but words should not be spoken carelessly. Whose personal belongings are you holding? Yet you cling to me. I and the heir only speak less than 10 sentences each time we meet. How could there be anything uncontrollable? Moreover, our Kui family is a 100-year aristocratic clan. the eldest daughter travels with a crowd of maidservants and guards, there's rarely a chance for you to be alone with me, let alone any skin-on-skin familiarity. You are the young master of the Wuan Marquis. But our Kui family is not an ordinary household. If you smear dirty water and tarnish our Kui family's 100-year-old reputation, what can you do? As soon as I finished speaking, everyone realized what had happened indeed. The Kui family was no ordinary household. They were a centuries-old aristocratic clan, one of the most powerful and prestigious families in the capital. For them to have stood firm for so many years, the strictness of their family rules and ancestral teachings was beyond imagination. How could a legitimate daughter of the Kui family ever do such a thing? Xie Yunzhou's expression turned sour, shifting between pale and flushed. His hand tightened around the belliband. Princess Cheng Huan, pretending to be my confidant, leaned in and whispered with her head bowed, "But, Nanji, haven't you always liked the air of Lord Wuan? At the last poetry appreciation gathering, you praised the heir for his remarkable talent, and everyone knows you admire his wit and learning. Besides, the fabric of that undergarment was bestowed by the palace, and no one else but you has it." Her words carried a pointed implication. Since the imperial gift was mine alone, that doo-doo could only belong to me. I chuckled softly and said, "You're right, County Princess. But speaking of that fabric, you said its color was lovely and you really liked it. On your birthday, I specially made a tube top and gave it to you. Have you forgotten? I'm not the only one in the capital who has this. You have one too." Princess Chenghuan's face turned pale, and her voice grew sharp. "What nonsense are you talking about, little sister? A woman's reputation is not something to be carelessly dragged into this. By saying that, aren't you slandering the innocent name of the Crown Prince and me? I've never even met the Crown Prince. How could it be mine?" I pressed on step by step. "Yes, how important a woman's chastity is. The county lord obviously knows but won't look, and you open your mouth and loudly claim it's my chemise. Those who know are the county lord's straightforward heart. Those who don't might think the county lord has some relation with the heir apparent and wants to sully my reputation." Tears fell from the eyes of the county lady who adored pleasures. "Nanji, I know I am an orphan girl, but the emperor, in consideration of my late father's face, granted me the title of county lady. Who doesn't know my family has fallen on hard times? The auspicious bark cloth you gave me is excellent. I am reluctant to wear it. How could it appear in another man's hands?" A noble girl who couldn't bear to see this spoke up. "Queen Nanji, you're going too far. The county lady and you are bosom friends, yet you are making things difficult for her." I looked at her. "If I were to cause her trouble, if she said that bustier is yours, could you still accept it with a cheerful heart?" That noble lady fell silent for a moment, then said quickly, "But the county magistrate said it. That fabric was a gift from the imperial palace to you. Besides you, who else could it be?" I looked at the suspicious gazes of the people and smiled. "That bolt of fabric, I used to make a flying immortal dress. Then there was enough left to make 2 bustiers. One was given to the county magistrate. One is in my mansion, among those in the heir's arms. This one is definitely not the one from my mansion. Can I bring it out? Can the county magistrate bring it out?" The county head of Chenghuan wore a pale face and did not dare to speak. Xie Yunji hurriedly stood up to smooth things over. "All right, Nanji. I know it's my fault. I shouldn't have carried this thing with me. I apologize to you. 3. If I go back today, I'll ask my mother to send a matchmaker to propose a betrothal. Is that all right?" I let out a snort and laughed. "Prince Shizzy, how absurd. I have only met you twice, both times at palace banquets, and we have never even exchanged a word. Yet now you claim we share mutual affection. How ridiculous can you be? Propose a marriage. With a character like yours that twists right and wrong, you are unworthy of the Kui family's standing." The Princess of Chenghuan tugged at my sleeve. "Nanji, please don't be angry with the prince anymore. He already knows his mistake, so just forgive him. If he comes to propose, let this matter rest. After all, a bit of intimacy between betrothed couples won't draw criticism from anyone. What won't they say about me in this world? The rules of propriety are harsh. In my last life, the 2 of them slandered me, and I was punished by the Grand Princess, beaten to death in this life. I will never let such a thing happen again." I shook off her hand and let out a cold snort. "Every word you say, Lady Chenghuan, is in defense of the heir of the Marquis of Wuan. Anyone wouldn't know whether to think you've fallen for him, The county magistrate's main face turned pale. I didn't. How could you slander me like this? I looked at the first princess on the viewing bench with a frown, stepped forward, and said loudly, Your Highness the First Princess. This concerns the Kui family's name and Nanji's reputation. Please, Your Highness, make the decision. I can prove my innocence. I had already instructed a maid to fetch the finished dress from the residence and placed it in front of the first princess. The fabric awarded in the palace, I have already made into this Liu's yarn dress, and there are 2 strapless tops as well. Your Highness, please examine carefully, someone asked. Those 2 strapless tops, one you said you gave to the county princess. What about the other? Chunghuan County's Zhu Jie shouted. A strapless top is a close-fitting item. Would you really expose your most intimate garment to everyone over a trifling matter? I gazed directly at her, then looked to the Princess Dowager. Your servant regards herself as innocent and unafraid to prove herself. I can immediately prove on the spot that I am still wearing that strapless garment. Everyone burst into an uproar. Among the noble ladies of the family, how much grievance must she have endured to dare say she will display her intimate belongings? I looked at Mingyu, who had finally hurried back, and smiled. I said to Mingyu, because I accidentally snagged that chemise, and even throwing it away would be a great disrespect to the imperial family. I gave it to my personal maid. Everyone turned to look at Mingyu. Mingyu stepped forward, her face slightly flushed. Yes, as it happens, I am wearing it today. The eldest princess signaled to the matron beside her. The matron led Mingyu into the tent. After a while, she came out holding a peach-red corset and presented it to the eldest princess, saying with a smile, It is indeed this maidservant who wore it. Moreover, the corset does have a snagged thread and a damaged pattern. Miss Kui was not lying. The crowd buzzed with exclamations, all eyes turning sharply to Xie Yunju and the Hehuan County princess. The eldest princess darkened her expression as she looked at them. Heir of the Marquis of Wuan, bring forward the corset in your hand and let me have a proper look. Cold sweat bead on Xie Yunju's forehead. The county magistrate's lord's face turned pale. The nursemaid beside the eldest princess stepped forward, took the chest wrap from Xie Yunju's hand, and sure enough the color and the fabric were identical as I said. Even the way the chest wrap is tied is the same. Princess Chunghuan, do you still have something to say? The eldest princess spoke in a deep voice. Princess Chunghuan struggled to defend herself. The same fabric doesn't prove it's mine. I let out a cold laugh and stepped forward. Your Highness the eldest princess, may I take a look? Because this chest wrap was embroidered by me. On the one I gave to Princess Chunghuan, I embroidered half a silk tree flower at the very bottom of the peony, symbolizing the Huan in Princess Chunghuan's name. The matron spread the chest wrap out before everyone's eyes. Indeed, under that peony, embroidery of a half-bloomed acanthus flower. For the virtuous wife and noble ladies gasped. The head of the county, Chunghuan, had long since lost color on her face, swaying, on the verge of fainting. Oh my goodness, it's really the county mistress of Chunghuan's bando. This is really thief crying out that he has caught a thief. The 2 of them are having an affair, but because the strapless top slipped out, it was pushed onto Queen Nanji. Fortunately Miss Kui is quick-witted, or this reputation would be ruined. Who would marry into that family? In the end, she'd only be able to marry into the Wu Anho mansion, and probably not even the rightful wife. The Kui family's century-old pristine reputation was almost ruined. My eyes grew hot. In this life, I finally proved my innocence and laid out the whole truth. I let everyone know that the ones who had been secretly involved and carrying on a private relationship were Xie Yunju and the Princess of Chunghuan, in the previous life. Simply because I admired the young lord's talent and mentioned it to the Princess of Chunghuan, I found myself unable to refute Xie Yunju when he falsely accused me. This led everyone to believe that I had an illicit relationship with him. Out of admiration this time, I have finally cleared myself of all of that. Xie Yunju hurriedly tried to explain, that's not how it is, it's a misunderstanding, I just picked this up at the sidelines, I don't know which noble lady it belongs to, but I thought I'd return it if I had the chance. No sooner had he finished speaking than my palm landed on his face. The slap cut off his words. I glared at him in anger. You picked it up, yet you opened your mouth and claimed it was my bra, a love token after you'd been intimate with me. Did you pick it up and immediately claim it as mine, Lord of Henghuan County, a son of a noble family? If a student of such a lineage finds something like this and truly intends to return it to someone, how would he parade it about? He would only destroy it or hand it over to an elder among the ladies, never shout it aloud in the public square. You two are really formidable. If today hadn't been coincidentally my maid wearing this strapless top, I would truly be unable to clear my name, and would have to die to prove my innocence. My tears fell like beads. I knelt before the eldest princess. Your Highness, a woman's virtue is of utmost importance. Yet the heir of the Marquis of Wuan and the heir apparent of Chenghuan have publicly ruined my innocence and damaged the reputation of the Kui family. If it were not for your Highness's discernment and fairness in seeking justice for me, I would have no choice but to die today. The eldest princess was a rigid and traditional woman, but she loved nothing more than to be flattered. Now that something she detested had occurred, and she had heard my expression of gratitude and admiration, she was in an excellent mood. She helped me to my feet with her own hand. The Kui family's legitimate daughter is truly clever and quick-witted, calm in the face of danger. Rest assured, the Kui family has a century-long heritage and strict family discipline. I naturally trust that you would not do such a shameless thing. Then she turned to look at Xie Yunju and the county lord of Chenghuan. As for you two, you have secretly taught and learned from one another, and you have committed such indecent acts. You even try to smear the blame onto others. That is utterly despicable. The lady of Chenghuan County, who was bestowed the title by the Holy Grace, has betrayed the emperor's heartfelt favor and committed acts that taint the royal reputation, damaging the royal face. I will report to the emperor and revoke your county lord title, demoting you to a commoner Wanhu heir apparent. When tomorrow's Grand Court Assembly begins, you and the Wanhu heir apparent should go to court to explain to His Majesty how, using the title of heir apparent, you sullied the innocence of Kui Zhenxiang's daughter, and give the emperor and Kui Zhenxiang an explanation as well. In the previous life, Xie Yunju sullied my innocence to allow me to marry into the Xie family and restore my reputation. My father agreed to the Xie family's harsh conditions and handed over all the contacts Kui family had in court to the Xie family. But unexpectedly, I still died in a Daoist temple. Dad went white-haired overnight, and mother vomited blood from anger. In this life, he won't get any benefit, and in the previous life he owed the Kui family. I want him to repay it all in this life. The Lord of Chenghuan County knelt on the ground, crying pathetically. Please, Your Highness, have mercy. Chenghuan and the heir apparent are in love with each other. I sneered. You two are in love, yet when the ugly affair is exposed you use me as a raft, sullying my reputation. I've always treated you like a true sister, yet I never expected that at a time like this, you'd use me as your shield. Do you have no conscience? Xie Yunzhou's expression darkened. Miss Kui is also a noble lady in the capital. Now that Chenghuan knows she was wrong, you must understand, she is an orphan with no one to care for her, and her situation is difficult. Why must you press her so relentlessly? I laughed. So because her circumstances are pitiable, she can do whatever she pleases, slander others and shift the blame. You, young Marquis, are from a prestigious family. If you truly pity her so much, why not go through the full rites of the 3 letters and 6 etiquettes and marry her properly? Why make such a scene instead? Why didn't you admit earlier that this was her doo-doo? Because you know full well it's a disgraceful matter that cannot see the light of day. The face of the Kui family is not something just anyone can come and slap. 5 At this moment, the Marquis of Wu's wife had already received the news and rushed over. After learning the whole story, her face turned pale with anger. Gritting her teeth and forcing a smile, she stood before the eldest princess and said, Your Highness, it is this humble woman's failure to teach my son properly that has led to such a disgraceful affair. My lady will certainly offer thorough instruction upon returning, and will also go to the Kui residence to apologize and offer consolation to Miss Kui. The imperial princess frowned at Xie Yunju and Chenghuan, then said loudly, The Marquis of Wuan's heir and the county lady Chenghuan have committed such indecent acts and deliberately slandered and framed others. They shall be punished with 30 strokes. Chenghuan's face turned pale. Retreating step by step, Please spare my life, Your Highness. Xie Yunju, upon hearing that a flogging was to be carried out, dropped to his knees with a thud and said, Your Highness, I am willing to receive the flogging on behalf of Chenghuan. I beg Your Highness to spare her from this punishment. A noble lady nearby muttered sarcastically, "How else will she learn her lesson if not beaten? Just being the county master doing such shameless things is simply embarrassing all the noble ladies in the capital." The princess dowager ordered. "No punishment, bring him." Chung Huan's eyes went black, nearly fainting. I stepped forward, pretending to steady her, and whispered in a barely audible voice, 30 strokes would be too light for her. The child in the county lord's belly may not be saved. Chung Huan looked at me as if she had seen a ghost, her face utterly devoid of color, so frightened that she could not utter a word in the last life, when Xie Yunju offered incense before my spirit tablet. He said that Chung Huan was already pregnant at that time. So he hurried to marry her in, so that the child in her womb would be born with a legitimate status. So, by then, Chung Huan was already carrying Xie Yunzhou's child. She bit her lip hard, not daring to say a word, because admitting to the pregnancy would only brand her as an adulteress deserving of drowning in a pond. Chung Huan was pressed onto a wooden bench, ready to be caned. I sighed softly. 30 strokes of that cane will likely leave her battered and bloody. How pitiful, Xie Yunju shouted. Long princess, do not use torture. Chung Huan is already pregnant. As soon as the words fell, the hall fell into silence. I cried out in shock, Chung Huan, you are the county mistress, yet you're secretly pregnant and bearing a child. Do you think you repay the emperor's grace by this? You too already have a child and you still want to drag me into the water to ruin my reputation. How cruel you both are, Your Highness. Please stand up for this subordinate. The eldest princess's gaze was icy cold, while the wife of the Marquis of Wuan turned pale with rage. She slapped him hard across the face and said, "Unfilial son, how could you do such a thing?" Then she pointed at the Princess of Chenghuan and said, "What a seductress you are. My son has always been well-mannered. You want to marry into the Marquis's manor. But I refuse, so you came up with this scheme, hoping to conceive a child and rely on that to enter the family. Shameless, despicable creature. I said long ago that your family is nothing but destitute nobodies. There's no way you're marrying into the Marquis's manor. I never imagined you'd stoop to such a vile trick just to get through the door. A woman who loses her virginity before marriage like this, how could she be worthy of being the wife of the heir to the Marquis of Wuan?" Xie Yunju pleaded bitterly. "Mother, the child in Chenghuan's womb is your grandson, flesh and blood of the Xie family." Chenghuan cried delicately, "Please, madam, grant us your blessing. The prince and I are truly in love." The grand princess looked at them with contempt and ordered, "Guards, give the prince 30 strokes at once. As for Countess Chenghuan, her punishment shall be recorded. She will receive it after the child is born." With that, she rose and left the scene. Nearby noble ladies looked upon the kneeling Xie Yunju and Chenghuan with undisguised disgust. The son of the Marquis of Wuan and the heir apparent, along with the lord of Chenghuan County, secretly pledged themselves to each other, and the news of their pregnancy spread far and wide. The rumors of how they slandered me also stirred up the entire city. Xie Yunju was given 30 strokes by the eldest princess's men and carried back to the Marquis of Wuan's residence. The Marquis flew into a rage. "You are the heir of the Marquis of Wuan. For the sake of a mere county lord from a broken-down family, how dare you openly slander the legitimate daughter of the Kui family? That Lord of Chenghuan County has only a title, living on a few measures of grain granted by the imperial court each year. She has no fiefdom. It was merely a scheme by His Majesty at the time to appease the people and display the royal family's favor. For the sake of the Lord of Chenghuan County, you have offended both the Kui family and the eldest princess. Just wait, tomorrow, the memorials impeaching you will pile up before His Majesty." Xie Yunju said indignantly, "What's so great about the Kui family? I already apologized. Her refusal to let it go only makes her look more rude." The Marquis of Wuan erupted in anger. "Tomorrow I have to submit a memorial begging for forgiveness, and you're still here acting as if you have no sense of your own peril." Then he instructed the Marquis's wife, "Prepare generous gifts. Tomorrow, we will go to the Prime Minister's residence in person to offer our apologies." 6. When I returned to the mansion, my parents already knew of the matter. My father said with a grim face, "What a fine heir to the Marquis of Wuan, treating my daughter's reputation as if it were nothing. Is he trying to drive my daughter to her death? Is our Kui family's century-old reputation going to be ruined so easily?" Mother, her eyes red, looked at me. "My daughter has been wronged. Fortunately you're all right. I thought of how my parents in the last life died of anger for me, and tears fell as I tightly hugged my mother. Daughter is fine, if Xie Yunju and the county master of Chenghuan want to harm me, it won't be that easy. The first thing I did after being reborn was to call the maids and have them hurry back to the manor to put on this strapless dress. In the previous life, among a swarm of rumors, I was besieged and at a loss. And before I could react I was punished by the Princess Dowager, and this time, Mingyu listened to me, returned to the mansion, and changed into this strapless dress. What I want is to slap the faces of Chenghuan County Lord and Xie Yunju on the spot, exposing all of their illicit affair the next day. Indeed, a pile of memorials from all the ministers accusing the emperor's ministers of various faults stacked up before the emperor, accusing Duke Wuan of misgovernance and lax discipline in the household, accusing Duke Wuan's heir of lacking virtue, shamelessly ruining a woman's name and chastity, which is truly shameless. The eldest princess also went into the palace to inform the emperor. By the Empress's decree, the Countess of Chenghuan's virtue had been corrupted, she had lost her chastity before marriage, and she was unworthy of the honor of being the county mistress. Her title was revoked and she was demoted to a commoner. Jiyu Chenglian knelt before the palace gate, crying in pain, "Your Majesty, I know I am wrong. If you demote me to a concubine, my father in heaven would be heartbroken." The Empress sent an elder maid to deliver a reprimand. I imagine that even the spirit of General Wei Yuan in heaven would not rest in peace knowing his daughter has done such a thing. You'd better think carefully about your conduct. Jiyu Chenghuan sat down on the ground, realizing that he could never regain the title of county master. Henceforth, in heaven and on earth, there would be no more the former glory, and the Marquis of Wuan was reprimanded by the emperor, confined to his residence for reflection, and fined 1 year's salary. The heir of the Marquis of Wuan was stripped of all his current positions and given the task of managing the gatekeeping battalion at the western gate of the capital. From being the crown prince to becoming a minor instructor of the garrison camp, this undoubtedly dealt him a cruel blow, turning him into the laughingstock among the capital's aristocratic disciples. The Marquis of Wuan's wife dragged Xie Yunju, who could barely move from his injuries, to the Kui residence the next day to apologize. Dozens of gift boxes filled the courtyard. The Marquis's wife looked at my mother with a shameful expression. It was our failure to discipline him properly, allowing this wayward son to commit such a grave mistake. I hope Miss Kui will not take it to heart. Consider these apologies as an early bridal gift for Miss Kui in the future. Truly, the Xie family's honor has been lacking. Xie Yunju stood in the courtyard, looking at me. Nanji, I interrupted him. Young prince, mind your words. I am not familiar with you. You had better address me as Miss Kui. Xie Yunju frowned slightly. I never expected things to turn out like that on the polo field, but Chenghuan is your best friend. You wouldn't help her even once. I thought at the time that if my relationship with her were exposed, it would harm her reputation. My mother already doesn't like her. If she found out we had secretly pledged ourselves to each other, she would be even more furious. That's why I gave your name. You are the legitimate daughter of the Kui family. Even if your reputation suffers, the Kui family will protect you, and you don't have to worry about what others think. But Chenghuan is different. She is an orphan, with no one to rely on. I laughed in anger. So, because she's an orphan girl, she can ruin my reputation and virtue. Because she's my good friend, she can trample on my kindness. Our Kui family's name has been upheld for generations, through countless pains and tears. How dare you use us as a raft? The prince's face has grown a bit too big. You and the county lady of Chenghuan privately in the carriage conduct those unspeakable acts. That's your business. Why should I debase you for it? I will not forgive today's restitution. Chenghuan and I will not be friends again. And His Highness, please leave. Princess Chenghuan was stripped of her title, and with it went her previous rewards. Now, she can only stay within the Jiyu residence and live out her days, and she bore the blood of Xie Yunju, and given how monstrous the affair had become, the Wu Anho residence would, in any case, have to marry her lady who frowned. If she wants to enter the manor, she can only be a concubine. Wish to become the wife of the heir, it's absolutely impossible. Chenghuan truly never imagined that one day she would have to marry as a concubine. She was the Princess Chenghuan, after all. But because she and Xie Yunju had failed in their scheme and were reduced to commoners, the Marquis of Wuan's mansion would never allow a woman without noble status to become the wife of the heir. But this was her only chance. She would fight tooth and nail to secure a place for herself in the Marquis's manor. She sent her personal stewardess to the manor, claiming that if the heir refused to marry her as his legitimate wife, she would go to strike the Denguen drum and accuse him of seducing her and getting her pregnant. At that point, she would fight to the bitter end with the Marquis's manor. 7. She was an orphan, after all, but the Wuan Marquis's mansion was a family of high-ranking officials with a long legacy. How could they dare to risk a confrontation with her? The lady of the Duke of Wuan was so angry that she smashed everything on the floor, gripping her nose. She recognized this marriage and agreed to marry Jiyu Chenghuan in the role of the heir's wife. Before marrying Chenghuan, she hosted a banquet at the mansion and wrote a letter asking me to come and meet her. In the letter, she wept and pleaded, saying that in the capital I am her only confidant and she wishes to see me one more time. I thought it over, and I still went to Gu's family banquet. Jiyu Chenghuan used to be the county lord, and although he is now a penniless commoner, he is still the future heir. So there were many noble ladies at the banquet. Halfway through the feast, Jiyu Chenghuan held my hand, his eyes red, and said, "Nanji, I was wrong. I know I've wronged you. I've embroidered a pomegranate skirt as an apology for you. Try it on and see if it fits." "Okay, now that I am about to get married, I just want to apologize to you, my best sister, to clear the old grievances." I looked into her eyes, gave a faint smile, and stood up. "All right." As Mingyu was supporting me to leave, Jiyu Chenghuan stood up and said, "Nanji, I'll go with you. No need for the maid to attend. I made the dress, so I'm more familiar with helping you put it on." The side chamber for changing clothes was by the lake in the back garden. I went inside to change. After the time it takes to finish a cup of tea, Mingyu was waiting anxiously in the flower hall, her forehead covered in sweat. "What's going on with your Jiyu family? You took my lady to change clothes, and she's still not back after so long. Take me to find her at once." Just then, a scream rang out from the back garden. Everyone looked over, and someone stood up. "Which young lady's scream is that? Go and see quickly. We'd better not wait until something happens." At the side room door stood a maidservant, her hand over her mouth, and her face pale, pointing at the room with a trembling hand. "Why is there an outsider man inside?" The sound of a man and a woman making love came from the side room, and the madam frowned. "What is going on here? Who dares to do such shameless things in this place? Open the side room door." Jiyu Chenghuan's personal maid trembled as she spoke. Miss Kui was just changing her clothes inside. Wouldn't it be improper to barge in all of a sudden? As soon as she finished speaking, a noble lady behind her covered her mouth and said, "Could Miss Kui be meeting a strange man in secret here? What's going on?" Xie Yunju appeared behind the crowd, frowning at the young maid of the Jiyu family. "Where is your young lady? How could you let something happen to Miss Kui on your estate? Can you bear the responsibility? Open the door at once and capture that scoundrel inside." A young servant rushed forward and kicked the door open, and a burst of fragrance wafted out from inside the room. "What kind of scent is this?" Among the crowd, some of the ladies' expressions changed. This was the kind of passion-inducing incense sold in disreputable places around the town. Inside the private room, behind the curtains, a man and a woman were entangled together. The woman was struggling to break free when Xie Yunjue suddenly rushed in. "Let go of Nanji." The person inside was startled, loosened their grip, and the woman pounced out. Xie Yunjue hugged her tightly. "Nanji, don't be afraid." The woman raised her face, her complexion an abnormal rosy color, and the onlookers' faces changed drastically. "Lord of Chenghuan County, oh my, so it turns out it was Jiyu Chenghuan himself inside with a man from outside. Shameless, isn't she pregnant? How can she still be messing around with other men?" Xie Yunju was astonished. "How is it you in there? Where's Queen Anji? Why should I be in there?" "Prince Xie." I stepped out from behind the crowd, with several noble ladies standing beside me. Xie Yunju was dumbfounded. "What are you doing here?" I looked at them with disgust. "I am not here. Where should I be?" Jiyu Chenghuan's clothes were disheveled. When he saw me, his eyes red with rage, he pointed at me. It's you who harmed me. It's you who invited the outsider in to flirt with me. Everyone must stand up for me. Queen Anji harmed me. What a vicious heart." I puzzledly said, Miss Gu, this is the Gu family, not my Kui family. How could I have invited an outsider into the residence? I don't even know the road. 8. You just told me to wait for you here while you went to fetch clothes for me to change into. I waited and couldn't find you, so I went out to look for you and happened to meet a few young ladies by the lake admiring the fish. I was delayed a bit, they can testify for me. How did it become that I implicated you? Several noble ladies nodded in agreement. That's right. Miss Kui has been with us the whole time. How could she have set you up? Jiyu Chenghuan said. Tearfully, I had just brought my dress in when the door was locked from the outside. There was a man hiding inside, and a love incense was burning. Your Highness, you must seek justice for Chenghuan. It was Queen Anji. She despises me because of the chest wrap incident. She deliberately plotted to ruin my reputation. I chuckled. Everyone, please judge fairly. I don't know how I've offended Miss Gu, but she has repeatedly tried to smear my name. This is the Gu residence. How could I possibly have the means to scheme against you here, find an outsider, and light love incense? Such fragrance is sold only in brothels and taverns, right? The fragrance is in here. If the people in the brothel come and identify them, they'll know which house trafficked them. If they won't say, report to the authorities and see who sold this harmful thing, and who bought it, and seize that foreign man as well and send him to the official authorities. That man, bewitched by the warm fragrance, was half asleep and half awake. I had someone drag him out and throw him into the lake to snap him awake, then brought him back. His face was ashen, trembling, pointing at Jiyu Chenghuan. It was the two of them who paid 50 taels of silver, telling me to hide in the house and wait for a noble girl to appear, lock me in for a small measure of time. But once I went in I was dizzy from the intoxicating fragrance and I had no idea who came in. I am innocent. She brought me here. Don't send me to the official. The moment this man spoke, Jiyu Chenghuan screamed, nonsense. How could I possibly know you? The man shouted loudly, don't try to dodge and blame me. When you came to me to handle this matter, you dropped a handkerchief in the tea house and I picked it up. This is yours. He produced a handkerchief, on which was embroidered a lotus flower, just Jiyu Chenghuan's usual embroidery pattern. Everything is now clear. The way everyone looked at Jiyu Chenghuan had changed. A person like her was truly disheartening, and to think Miss Kui used to consider her a good friend, yet she turned out to be so vile, scheming to harm others every day. Now that she's about to marry the heir, what more could she be dissatisfied with? Yet she still stoops to such despicable acts of malice. Xie Yunju, under the watchful eyes of the crowd, awkwardly let go of his hand and said with some difficulty, Chenghuan, apologize to Nanji at once. How could you do something like this? Just then, the Marquis of Wuan's consort hurried over, her face burning with anger. Jiyu Chenghuan, a woman as wicked as you still aspires to be the lawful wife. Even if you take this to the palace, I will never agree. After the scene you've caused today, let me tell you, either you face the duckling cage, or if you still wish to marry into our Marquis's manor, it will only be as a concubine. Jiyu Chenghuan collapsed to the ground, looking up at Xie Yunju with her face raised. Young Marquis, this wasn't my idea alone. You knew about it too. You said that once Queen Anji was caught alone in a room with another man and her reputation ruined, no one would dare marry her, and then she'd have no choice but to enter the Marquis's manor as a concubine. Say something. I cannot be a concubine. Our child is the legitimate firstborn son. I snorted coldly. So the crown prince and she joined in to harm me. What ignorance, what a bad reputation. If the crown prince won't give an explanation, I will go to Empress to ask the Empress to decide tomorrow. Xie Yunzu, Nanji, I was wrong. I only want to marry you. You are the person I have always wanted to marry. I retorted angrily. Marry me. You don't deserve it. So indecent. How could you deserve to be human? 9. I clenched my hands tightly. Fortunately, I am shrewd enough to know that Jiyu Chenghuan would not invite me so trivially. Sure enough, when I was lured to change clothes, as soon as I entered the door, I caught the scent of that warm, intimate fragrance. The dark guard I brought knocked out the maidservant. I hid to the side and watched as Jiyu Chenghuan took the dress into the room, then locked them all inside, leaving her to suffer the consequences of her own actions. With this, the schemes that he and Jiyu Chenghuan had plotted together were completely exposed. Now, let's see if he can continue to be the heir. As soon as the noble ladies and young misses attending the banquet left the Gu residence, they spread the news far and wide. The Marquis of Wuhan was livid with rage. The emperor's reprimand was still fresh in his ears when yet another scandal involving the heir came to light. The Marquis of Wuhan's estate represents the hard work of several generations. It must not be ruined by your hands alone. You are so unworthy. Relinquish your position as the heir. Tomorrow, I will submit a memorial confessing my faults and pass the title of heir to your younger brother. With such moral degradation, how are you fit to be the heir? Our Xie family cannot allow you to bring about its downfall. Xie Yunju knelt on the ground. Father, I realize my mistake. I will change in the future. I beg you, Father. The Marquis of Wuhan shook his head. I have given you chances, but you have disappointed me too deeply. The estate of the Marquis of Wuhan concerns not only our immediate family but also the entire Xie clan. I cannot let you destroy it all. Xie Yunju was stripped of his position as the heir. The title of heir to the Marquis of Wuhan was given to Xie Yunxin, the second legitimate son of the Xie family. Jiyu Chenghuan, because she was pregnant, was still admitted into the Wuhan Marquis residence, but as a concubine and placed in the most secluded yard the day they carried her in. The Wuhan Marquis residence only carried in a pink sedan chair, to carry the former Chengguan County mistress in as a concubine, and Xie Yunzu had already collapsed. Because of Jiyu Chenghuan, he lost the heir position, he lost all his prospects, and could only become a losing chess piece. Abandoned by the Wuhan Marquis residence, not long after the marriage, the Wuhan Marquis separated him from the mansion and gave him a small villa as his residence, letting him leave the Wuhan Marquis residence with Jiyu Chenghuan. Wan Hu said coldly, all of this is the result you produced yourselves. In the future, with the silver you take when you split the family, you should manage it well yourself. In the capital, no one cared anymore about Wan Hu's former crown prince Xie Yunju, nor about the former mistress of the welcoming county. It seemed in the eyes of the people in the capital that they had completely disappeared. Only I know that Xie Yunju drinks away his sorrows day by day, spends money like water, and within half a year the 1,000 taels of silver from the split family were squandered clean. The family's servants scattered, and even the commoner workers could not be afforded. Jiyu Chenghuan carried a daughter 10 months into pregnancy. Xie Yunju resented that she had not born a son, and he did not even let her finish her confinement month. He dismissed the nursemaids assisting her, leaving Jiyu Chenghuan to manage the household himself. Jiyu Chenghuan's embroidery skills are poor, he has no real specialty, can only go out every day to pick up some laundry and do odd jobs for large households, earning 100 or 200 copper coins a month to support his daughter. And at the annual polo match, I accompanied the princess to sit in the stands and watch the eldest sons of noble families indulge themselves on the field, while in a corner, I spotted a familiar figure. He was painstakingly wiping each polo mallet and carrying hay for the horses. That was Jiyu Chenghuan. I heard that Xie Yunju had fallen into gambling addiction, repeatedly returning to the Hu mansion to ask the mansion to help him pay off his debts. After several times, the master declared that Xie Yunju was no longer a person of the Wuhan Marquis mansion, and would not pay off his debts for him again. He was trying to flee after once again falling into gambling debt, but was accidentally killed by the casino thugs during the chaos. Jiyu Chenghuan became a widow and lived in a run-down thatched cottage with her daughter. As their original house had long been taken to pay off debts, she looked up from a distance and met the eyes of someone on the high viewing platform. Once equals, they were now as far apart as heaven and earth, two different worlds, with no place left for her to set foot, and I will only sit high above where she can never reach, making her gaze up in vain.